Hello.
Hello.
You're having a rest day.
Yep. Somehow you got me to make you a cup of coffee. Still walk the dogs. Did the laundry.
Full rest day for K Animal. Mandatory shutdown rest day. How's that going? It is 1:45 exactly.
It's not going too badly.
Oh, I thought you were going to say not going too well.
I mean, I definitely need a rest day.
Why? Why do you say
you
need a rest day?
I feel like I haven't probably slowed down. I feel like if I'm a car, let's use an analogy. You like analogies. I've been going somewhere between 80 to 120 miles an hour.
In a school zone.
In a school zone. I've gotten down to...
But you've also been texting while driving.
Only when going 80.
Only when kids are present.
I've probably gotten down to 60 a couple times.
Unintentionally because of the texting, though.
Because I almost hit something.
Right.
But yeah, so I definitely feel tired.
Feel tired, yeah.
I need to stop and refuel.
How do you feel tired? What does that...
last night I felt sick.
You felt sick, yeah.
Yeah, my body actually felt sick. I felt...
So you had some nausea.
Yeah, nauseous, just total fatigue.
Do you think you're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19? I don't
know. I mean, I can be kind of a hypochondriac.
Sure. But you don't think is that the direction you're going with it? Or are you going
of course, anybody now who starts feeling a little under the weather,
yeah, of course.
There's that oh my God, I'm not concerned about my health in that way, in an extreme way. I mean, if I was sick with that, I feel like, of course, I'm not dismissing how serious it is, but it would be unfortunate, but it's not gonna
We've also been pretty respectful of the
guidelines. I mean, I have gone to the store.
You have.
I have worn a mask. I wash my hands. I use wipes. So I mean, sure, is it possible? Yes, anything is possible, but
I'm saying your behavior has not been risky. In regards of I kind of been
right. I haven't been lax about it.
Right.
But I think also outside of COVID-19, when I get overrun, run down, I do feel sick, and I often push myself to that point.
Yeah.
So that's kind of...
And I think that's more common for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So taking a day off, but, not just working out, but trying not to fill that space with something else. I'm going to organize the entire...
So the purpose
basement
of you taking a rest day is what?
To stop moving. I mean, physically, I need to rest my body.
Right.
I mean, that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two is, mentally, there's a lot of multitasking and on to the next and thinking about the next while I'm still doing the present and, focus out on other people, whether that's members, the kids, you, the dogs. There's a lot of just activity.
Right.
And so giving my mind and just me a break from taking care of all those things.
So that's a lot. Your workouts every day have not been... You're not Rich Froning. You're not training for the games.
Right, I'm not overtraining.
You're not overtraining. Right.
But I have moved every day.
You've moved every day, varying intensities. Mm-hmm. This weekend was a lot. There's certainly been movement. Yeah. But your need for taking a rest day is not the result of an excessive amount of volume.
Correct.
Physical workout training.
No, it's the combination of everything.
So when we think about taking a rest day and why it's important and looking at the mental and emotional activity that you've also been experiencing, if we were to put that on one side, if we were to make 2 columns, that's on one side. Second column is physical activity.
Right.
Which one would you say is greater?
That I've been exhausting more?
Yes.
Yeah, the mental side.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's the combination. And I think the physical, what's interesting is like yesterday when we went to work out, I could feel starting then like the physical manifestation of that exhaustion. Like had no get up.
Right.
I was thinking about it too. Like I have been, and this goes back to like, you did the No Fix November and just looking at which stimulants kind of keep you away from being aware, kind of cover-ups.
Of your signals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for sure, like I'm not drinking an excessive amount of coffee, but I went from allowing myself 1 cup to now 2 cups. That's double. Mm-hmm. And then if I have a cup of decaf, which we know isn't 100%, like decaf has some caffeine. Mm-hmm. So I don't know, some of that's like, I was thinking about it yesterday. It's like, well, I'm tired. I need coffee. Well, you're tired. So like you should honor that you're
rest.
tired. Yeah.
I mean, I asked you yesterday, like, well, what do tired people do?
Yeah.
It's like, well, they rest.
Yeah.
But.
And there's a lot with that. Like, I feel this about it. I have these I have a lot of my own story that I make up about things that make that complicated. So it's practice
But it's also, I think, goes to show that you could say, all right, my left column of mental emotional, you do 90% of the gym now. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, it was closer to 50-50. Who knows what the actual thing was?
Mm-hmm. I know. I did a tally and recorded it.
That's why you need a fucking
percentage.
But now you do most of that.
Right.
And the system is up and running. Like basically the system's running. Mm-hmm. We've got it and we iterate and whatever, but there's not a lot of the manual grinding of the gears that was required. I'm saying to build the system.
Sure, now there's a platform, but it requires
work and update. But what I'm saying
is
it's not like, what are we going to do?
No, we don't have to create the wheel.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Now, we need to keep it in motion and refine it and whatnot. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that at the time that this whole thing happened, it was much more evenly split. I was doing this, you were doing that, but it was all pretty much about the gym. That has shifted towards you pretty much. I'll coach a class here or there. Depends on what we've got going on. But like you're 95% doing the gym. I'm trying to step away and focus more towards between the ears now because it's been a month and we're like, all right. So you could easily look at that and say, okay, on the mental and emotional side, the activity that I'm doing, the workouts that I'm doing is coaching classes, emailing with people, coordinating with the team,
doing the Instagram,
doing the programming, updating Kajabi. Yeah. Like there's a long, long list.
Yeah.
And today is like, hey, you need to force it because last night you're shutting down.
Yeah.
But you could very easily rationalize that and say, okay, I'm not going to do any of that. The Instagram, the updating, the programming, all of that. But I'm going to work out. Mm-hmm. You could essentially separate, we'll just say, the body from the mind.
Right.
In that logic or that story, that form of the story, that tale. However, you cannot separate the body and the mind. And so while you are not maybe physically exhausted from physical movement.
Right. I am physically exhaused from the other activity.
And your body, which exists to support your mind and feeds it information and it is one and the same, also needs a rest day. You need a good night's sleep, multiple good night's sleeps. You need you need to not have that intensity revisited and not just Fran, but all of the things like in that mental emotional column.
Sure. I think it's also a day to sort of reset. I'm taking some action steps so that tomorrow doesn't just go back to the same pace. So kind of having to look at what I'm doing. And so, yeah, so that's that. Because I certainly don't want to end up sick. And we do know that the body and the mind are not separate, and stress and all that will impact your immune system. And so it would be foolish to be doing a cold shower every day and this and that and working out and eating right, but then just overloading my system with stress. And it's like, well,
right,
you missed kind of one of the major things. So.
Right.
Yeah. But one of my stories with it, which does tie into what we're talking about today, is kind of like, well, well, I'm taking a rest day and I'm not giving my best. Like, so there's that thought we talked about last night on the Between the Ears call. Like, what is that notion of like best, and am I doing less than today? Mm-hmm. Have I deserved that? Is that okay? There's a lot of that going on.
Yeah, so let's just get into it then.
Can I have a sip of your decaf?
I thought you said I can't give this to you.
Give it to me or I'll spill it all over you.
Okay. So we wanted to look at, so we had a very powerful discussion on last night's Between the Ears weekly call. Mm-hmm. And one of the topics that came up was like, how do I know if I'm giving my best?
Right.
And I think anybody that's ever seriously asked themselves that question understands how difficult it is to answer.
Right.
And so it's a very big question. It's a challenging question. And some of the challenge, I believe, is that the word best is a comparative word. Right? It posits that there's nothing else better. It is supreme. So in the absence of any sort of comparison or any sort of measurable outcome, how do you know if it's your best? And that's sort of one of the exercises with Between the Ears very early on, is to look at that, because it forces you to, it creates an involved learning experience that combines the body and the mind to look at, learn, and question this notion of giving your best. Mm-hmm. Because we know the workout part is easy. You can kind of be like, no, I know I kind of slacked off. It's really about giving our best in life.
Well, the other thing is the workout parts. What's tricky about that is, and we know people get wrapped up on the numbers. If you got a second faster than you've ever gotten, you're like, okay, cool, that was my best. There's data attached, versus life, there's not a number attached to that.
There's nothing. So, in the absence of everything, how do you know if it's your best? Mm-hmm. And nobody, that's for you to have a chat with.
Do you think though also, and I don't think we talked about this necessarily last night, but don't you think there's also a pressure, like, in my mind, like, okay, well, today should be better than yesterday. Like, there should be this constant, today's the best, and then tomorrow's the best. And then, because then there's this notion like, well, last Monday was my best. So what does that mean about today?
Well,
like, there's always a comparison within your own. That's, I think, the challenge I face.
Yeah.
So
I guess that's interesting. So this will be, so then is progress and is improvement direct and linear and plottable?
Well, of course not, but in my mind it is.
Well, I think sure. And I think that there's a quote.
Like, who wants to be worse today than they were last year?
Right. And it's an often quoted quip, which I do believe in, that we can try to, like, you just want to try to get 1% better every day. If you can get 1% better every day, then, like, think about how great you can be.
But isn't there a ceiling?
Well,
can you give more than 100%?
Well, how dare you ask the question? So, just as a little aside, one of the very first weeks, I don't even know if I was allowed to talk. Actually, I think I was asked the question. So when I first got to my Special Forces team, I was asked, or there was a conversation,
Nick.
old Nick and Kinger, of is it possible to give more than 100%?
I would be scared of answering that question.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. It was quite a bit. And there was two, and there, anyway.
What's the answer?
I can't, it's not appropriate for this podcast for me to respond.
I'm glad that you're censoring yourself finally.
Anyway.
Yeah, so if you can
I
get
think
1% better every day.
Yeah, so,
like,
but I think that, and I like that. And I think what that does is it says, look, let's try to look at getting better and improving, not as
destination.
Yeah, not as the destination, or not as this like massive thing. For example, somebody who's not fit right now, don't worry about being the world's fittest human being.
Right.
Just be a little bit fitter than you were yesterday. Somebody at cooking, somebody at reading, like any sort of development. I think it's very important to say, hey, don't worry about like summiting the mountain. Just tie your fucking shoes.
Right. Just start the journey. And that's, I think that is,
I think that's the essence of the quote.
And I think what's interesting about that is you're using examples that people might have something like, if you're going to start learning to use a bow, that's like your new thing.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
So, because that's totally new to you, I feel like you can accept and say, like, I'm just going to get 1% better every day, right? If I said that about, like, your business, would you have the same acceptance? Like, yep, just going to get 1% better every day. Or do you feel like, no, I can't have that much, like... Do you know what I'm saying? Something you're already proficient at, or you feel like you should be better at, versus something that's like brand new to you. Like you with cooking or me with cooking. Yeah, it's appropriate for you to say, I'm just going to get 1% better every day because it's newer to you.
But I would actually disagree on that a little bit. I understand.
You're not good at cooking? No, I mean, you agree.
How can I possibly disagree? I would disagree with that. Only because of, and it's not like the beginner's luck, but the rate at which you develop when you begin something is exponential.
Yes.
So I think going into something as a beginner, you're like, I suck. I'm going to suck because I don't know this.
I guess I meant the patience piece.
Yeah, I know. But what I'm saying is, but then as a beginner, it's like, hey, here's how you hold the bow. Here's how you, whatever, unpack the chicken, whatever it might be. Like seriously, you know what I mean? Like, here's how you do these very, very basic things. And all of a sudden, then that rate of improvement and progress is much steeper than 1%.
Yes. Okay.
All right. As you progress and as you get better at things, like for Michael Jordan to get 1% better because of how good he already is versus somebody who just doesn't know how to hold the basketball.
Sure. And I guess 1% is like, the point is get better every day.
That's what I'm saying.
Just look at trying to get better every day. So
that's what I'm saying. But I think to directly answer your question, I feel that there is pressure to continually get better. Be it by 1%, 5%, 10%, I don't really know. But one of the things I often struggle with is feeling like I'm not making progress and not getting better and and maybe getting worse and just tumbling around and being lost.
So would you say for you struggle more with just not getting better and not worrying about so much being the best?
What?
Like for you, is it more about, would you say you struggle with less with like, is this my best, and more with just the notion of getting better?
I think I struggle with my best.
Okay.
I think that somebody asked me last week, Christina on her podcast, like, what's something you're afraid of? And it's just not doing my best. So for me, that's a big personal driver. Like, I don't want to waste life. And if I'm not giving my best, if what I'm doing isn't my best, because there's been a lot of times, when I was younger, I wasn't my best. And I didn't have, for some things, I didn't have to give my best, and I could get pretty good results. But, and then later in life, it was kind of like, I don't want to waste this because, and with recently a lot of the presence and appreciation I recognize how many gifts, blessings, and how fucking lucky I really am. And so to squander that is a major fear of mine. And so I want to always do my best, which kind of goes into the point of this. Well, how do you know it's your best?
Right. And what's funny about, as you're talking, like thinking about, it can't be like, is today taking a rest day my best?
So there we go. I mean, I think that that's the thing. So the ebb and the flow, the ups and downs and peaks and valleys of how you experience life and who you are.
And what
it's not a
is
staircase.
And you said last night, and this was like kind of, it has to be relative to like how you want to be. Mm-hmm. So if how I wanted to be today was like, like representing like how strong I am, how fit I am, like wanted to really like make it about like a day where I'm like physically, my physical pursuits, then I guess today isn't my best. But today, how I want to be is calm and at peace and restful. So it is my best. But I can't compare 2 months ago what my best was at that time to my best today, because what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis are completely different, and how I need to be are completely different. So there's just not an absolute about it.
Yeah, and I think for you and for me, and I think for many, the pressure to do your best, because look, it's something that hopefully every kid has been told, hey, I don't care how it goes. Don't worry about how it goes. Mm-hmm. Just go out there and give it your best. Be that a game, be that school, be that a play, be that whatever it might be.
Which now when you realize it, it's like, geez, that's a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure, but yeah, it is a lot of pressure for sure. And I think that a way to maybe shift that, because best is going to be like, okay, good, then I have to beat Timmy. Mm-hmm. Is, hey, go out there and just be you. Like whatever that is, be you. Mm-hmm. And as a kid, I don't think you really get that. Like, I don't think authenticity. Like, I think the kids probably more naturally have maybe a little bit of that, but that's not really how it goes. And so I think what I'm trying to say here is my best today, your best today, it's a rest day. Like, it's not going to be what your best was maybe, or what you're fully capable of, or your top
capable
performance.
And best being different.
Yeah, they're certainly different. And so, well, how can I be my best today?
Right.
And that requires you to check in with yourself, to pay attention to what you have been doing, how you have been feeling, what the environment is that you occupy. Mm-hmm. What have the signals and sensations and just conversations in your mind been like? And you're going to change, because there's going to be 40% days. And there's going to be days, and we call them 40% days, but like where your best is going to be comparatively at 40% of your best or your capacity. But that's what it is for you in that day because of
the factors at play. Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, like what your measuring stick is. So for me, I get very focused on, work or cooking or things that I think are expectations I have, capabilities I have of myself. I'm capable of cooking a really good meal. I'm capable of cleaning our home. I'm capable of doing what's needed for the gym to serve people. And there's nothing wrong with those things. So doing all those things, sometimes I get caught up in like, okay, good, I'm doing my best. I'm doing all these things. At the same time, though, by doing them, I'm not being my best in another way, because they're exhausting me. And then what's left for you or the kids isn't my best. So, that's where, like, to your point, like checking in and seeing like, how am I being? So if I'm doing all those things, and that's sort of like, oh, I'm being my best as a gym owner, but it causes me to be really shitty as a mother and a wife. Okay, how can I how can I adjust those so that if my priority is, and there's no right or wrong answer,
Right.
but just seeing the whole picture, that it's not so myopic, like, because your different roles, you might be doing great as a mom, and if your family needs you right now, and it might mean not being your best at your job.
Possibly.
So that
for
could
sure.
change depending on, again, like you said, the situation of people right now whose kids are home and they're having to tend to them. Like, yeah, they're probably not being their best as a teacher.
Yeah, and I think that's where when folks get into like I need to, and your example is great. So we'll just take a teacher. You're a teacher, so your job is to provide education and support for kids learning.
Right.
And you're a mom, which is to take care of your family and so hopefully, whatever, whether you have somebody else, caretaker, a single mom, doesn't matter. Like that's the thing. So those are two sort of labels, but the only thing, the commonality in that's really important is that like who you are as the human being, as the individual.
Right.
And I think that if you only do your best as per your label, your profession, your title, your role, others by very definition will be neglected because you're only focused on that. And there are things that are contrarian. And that was my entire life. That was my life in the military, for sure, every single day. It was this or it was that. World A or World B. There wasn't any like World AB. Mm-hmm. So if we look at like, okay, for my best, I need to look at who I am and how I want to be from within, not what is the best teacher doing today? What is the best mom doing today?
So what does that look like? So I think that's easy to say, like how I want to be, who I want to be, but what does that mean? So give me a real life example of that. So you want to, or me, like it doesn't matter who we use. Like we can use me as an example or you.
Okay.
So I want to get all these things done. I want to be really great at serving the gym, doing my job, providing a value for that. Mm-hmm. I want to make food that's delicious and healthy for our family. I want to make sure I'm doing my workouts for myself, for my fitness. Okay, I want to be a really good wife. I want to spend time together with you and give you attention and, yeah. So those are all like roles and things I want to do. So now the question is, well, who do I want to be and how do I want to be? Mm-hmm. So you mean like, okay, well, who do I want to be? Well,
who do you want to be necessarily? Okay, so like, who are you first? Mm-hmm. And not answering those with mom, husband, small mm-hmm. business owner. Like not answering who you are with what you do.
Right. So I am, you mean like I am creative, I'm passionate, I'm hardworking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if those are the things, if those are the attributes and the values that you understand and connect to about yourself, mm-hmm. or the things you want to exhibit and express and be, I would say that that's a great starting point. Because let's just take the creativity thing. Mm-hmm. That's going to empower you and invite you to explore ways of being in a variety of situations. Right?
Yeah.
How can I be creative? Is asking, how can I basically express who I am? And how do I want to feel when I am expressing who I am? And it could be like, well, yeah, I want to feel peaceful at home. Mm-hmm. And I would submit that feeling peaceful at home is a major part of why you're taking a rest day. Because mm-hmm. I'm not going to answer for you, but have
peaceful
you felt...
isn't really a word peaceful? I've felt for a while by my own
Sure.
doing, but like, like relaxed, peaceful are not
Yeah.
words that have come to mind for the past month.
So looking at yourself and trying to, connect with who you are, not because a label says or a role or a title says so. Understanding how you want to feel and how you want to experience life. And then looking at, all right, what do I need to do that gets me there?
Right. And that's
And
a
that's
daily thing.
And that's a
to
daily
take
thing.
into
And that's
account all
also where
those
it's like,
things.
yeah, because we're not going to just be like, don't judge me, don't label me, don't whatever. Well, it's impossible. That's not how it works. So then it's like, well, for me then to feel peaceful at home where I'm a mom, wife, at work when I'm caring for the gym or whatever. Yeah, like in order to do that, I need to do this, which is take a rest day.
Right. Or not multitask.
Or not multitask, or just slow down, or just pay attention, and so
Yeah.
then I would say, great. If that's what you're doing for these things that are important to you, then how is that possibly not your best?
Right.
Because if you're still doing gym work, if you're doing your workouts and they're shitty and they're not giving you that feeling of peace that empowers you and fills you up and fuels you, then are you really doing your best? And I would say, no, you're not. It's like any sports team knows.
Right. The data is saying yes, but
Yeah.
yeah.
And I always and I think sports, and this is the last thing I say before you go, the team that doesn't always play the best, the team that plays the best does not always win.
Yeah.
Likewise, the best team doesn't always win. And those are two different things.
Right.
And so if it's just like, hey, we played a team that we were better than, heads and tails better than, and we won, but we played like crap, we didn't play our best.
Right. The
Yeah,
score
sure,
doesn't
you got
mean-
the result,
yeah.
which of course, and whatever. But where are you? How are you getting then better? And how are you growing? And what's that 1%? And so that's where I think looking at, the outcome to say it. And I'll always say this about the outcomes and stuff. And sometimes this is a very blunt question to ask people, but it's like, what is the outcome or the result saying about you that you don't have the internal strength to say about yourself?
Right. And I think, and what I was going to say, which is very appropriate for that, is like one of the things that comes to mind is when we've gotten in arguments. And
What's your record?
I can really, I know for me, I often get frustrated and I say, my sentiment is, I'm doing my best. I am doing my best. And like whatever's happening at that point, clearly it's not enough. We'll put that in air quotes. But in that case too, it's kind of like, okay, well, I can point to a lot of things, this and that and this and that, and I did these things. See, it is my best, and you're not accepting that. However, as you're saying, well, if the outcome is we're in an argument or you're feeling whatever, fill in the blank. Okay, what are how, like, you're skipping over, there is usually me skipping over how am I being in those things. And so looking at that outcome, and I just think a disagreement is kind of a good example of that, because you're sort of, somebody is obviously not feeling that. Now, I think if we were having a disagreement and I said, I don't think I can recall a single time where I was aware and being, okay, I'm being patient, I'm being all these things. And then we got in an argument and you're literally saying, well, how you're being isn't your best. Like, do you know what I mean? It's usually because the focus is on the outcome, on the tasks. I'm pointing to, look at the score, see, this is my best. And the neglect is in how I was doing all those things. So, yeah, I think but I think not to change course a little bit, but, last night, a lot of people that sign up for Between the Ears. So last night's call, now there's a weekly call that anybody that's doing the practice 1 or 2,
Yeah.
there's a call that's open to everybody. And it's been really cool because they've been pretty big. 15 to 20 people
Right.
hopping on at different times.
Yeah.
And, I think there is a certain person that's drawn to Between the Ears, someone that obviously wants to learn about themselves, wants to be open, wants to be vulnerable. I mean, you kind of, it's sort of a prerequisite.
Well, if you know it all, then don't waste my fucking time.
Right. But inherent in that kind of person, there's also that drive to want to be better.
Yes.
And so then there's this sort of compulsion a little bit with your best. So
Yes.
that resonated, I think, with a lot of people because there is that pressure and to it's maybe even now more so than ever because there's this sort of make the best of this situation. Like, don't be that person that's just being lazy in this. Like,
sure.
How can you overcome this adversity by being your best? And so I think a lot of people are experiencing that because there is some adversity. And right now, for a lot of people.
Yep.
And so of course, then it really highlights how, what's happening. So I think that pressure is a very real thing always, but kind of that it helps alleviate the pressure a little bit with how am I being and not just focusing on the outcome. Because
and there's a lot of people that I think because of the type of person that is drawn to Between the Ears and the type of person that does do the work. There's plenty of people that sign up and don't actually do the work. And that's for their reason. And I have no idea what that is, and that's just for them to have that chat with, and everyone's different. And that is the case. And it is challenging work. And there is pressure when you sign up and you say, I want to learn about myself. Like that's an inherent amount of pressure. And
right. And it poses many, many questions immediately.
And so one of the reasons I think that it might catch people by surprise at first is because it's like, hey, you need to be more compassionate with yourself. Like the fact that you're here says way more about who you are than, hey, I didn't get the workout in this week. It's okay. Like that is okay. And I didn't journal every single day.
That's probably the hardest thing for people.
Well,
not just what do you mean I should do more and I need to expect
I should journal
more
I should journal every single day. I should read the mindset and they get quite a bit of good feedback and people are like, wow, that makes sense now. I understand that, this, that, the other. And I should read it. It's like, no, I am not. Between the Ears is not about obsessing over this stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that people that are driven, I get it. The Steve Jobs and the Gary V's and, these titans and whatnot. And I understand how they're influential and whatever. And there's that, well, you just need to be obsessive about it. Okay. I disagree.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah. I just can't imagine that has ever ended in, I think there's certainly times in your life, like when you were writing your seminar, you kind of got into this place and it was a little bit of that, like, I'm just going to like you were having this creative time and like once you started going, it was kind of an obsession to finish the seminar.
Yes.
Yeah. And so everybody has those periods, but it's not sustainable.
Right.
And that's kind of like today.
But it's also a different energy. Like I guess here's the thing. Like I've said and I've become obsessed with things and been obsessive over things. And I would submit that I probably am still obsessed with stuff. I'm obsessed with learning.
Yeah.
But I think if I just kind of frame it a little bit more accurately, what I'm trying to articulate, the energy and the action is like a big thing. And the energy behind the action, the energy that drives the action. So being obsessed about stuff is not always doing. Like by action and by what and by what and by what. Being obsessed with something. You can be obsessed with improving. But if you constantly are trying to do something, you don't let anything sit and you don't see. Because in that pause where you just observe, you get to then reflect and see. And when you're always doing, You don't have that. And so, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of also like there's a thing with like the streak.
Well, that's game
Like,
theory too.
No, I know, but like I definitely relate to, for me, like the streak is big.
Yeah.
And it's
Meaning,
like I don't want to break the streak. Okay, I'm on day
okay, what about the
50 of
shower?
this. Yeah,
What is
so the
that?
shower, like, so we've been doing the cold shower.
3 minutes right in the morning.
3 minutes right in the morning, and it is really hard for me to navigate because same thing with the workouts. Like, okay, so right now, because we're not moving around a lot during the day, like I have done many more days in a row than I would ever do normally.
Yeah.
Normally I do a few days, take a rest day.
Yeah.
So, but I have to like really stop sometimes and ask like, what is the intention?
Yeah.
And I've gotten much better at that. Now,
Yeah.
I'm not cured of my, but like I am now stopping and saying, so I think yesterday it was that you said like, well, maybe it's not 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. So like I didn't start the timer. I got in, did like front to back, like, okay, like woke up a little bit,
Sure.
got out.
Yeah.
So just
I went in for 3.5, by the way,
yes,
to make
but you
up for
took 2 days off.
Well, because I was.
So, and clearly we need to do some work on ourselves. But yeah, I mean, and the same thing with the workouts. It can easily, the rationalization, what's funny about it, that's where like understanding that rational and emotional side, I am so good with rationalizing.
Yeah, for sure.
And it enters in, it's like, well, but like, well, I'm doing this because of this. And you kind of start to make these things up for yourself, and I have to stop and say like, okay, like what's the intent, and am I honoring that, and how am I being? So, but I think that's that obsessive, a little bit of like, you know, it can be so easy to fall into the cold shower, check, do the lymph, check,
Yeah,
do the workout,
yeah.
check, did my journaling, check, I'm going to meditate, check. And all of a sudden it's like, you're not showing up at all for any of these things. You're just doing them. And again, it ends up in, you know, just kind of
I have
burnout,
a
so.
thing on that too, where you look at today, right? You need a rest day, all of this. And this goes for anyone too, where there's this obsessiveness, there's this pressure, there's this drive, there's whatever it is to be your best, crush it, be better than yesterday, just always grow, always improve. And it's like, okay, well, and I've said this before, like, then is it perfection you expect?
Right.
Do
Or are striving for.
Or striving for. And then there's the streak. And it's like, and I'll be the first one to say, like, I'm not enabling people to be slackers or lazy or not care. In fact, quite the opposite.
Sure, there's a big gap between being way crazy obsessive
Right.
and being a slacker and
But here's
lazy.
what I've noticed with people who do between the ears, who are clients or you or myself or others. You shouldn't feel bad about feeling good. And I think sometimes it's like taking a rest day or being like, yeah, hey, like going to the spa or working on doing whatever it is that like that you feel good about. This is where I think the workouts can get challenging because there's that, endorphin and dopamine hit, and obviously food can be abused with this, but like really what I'm talking about is the stuff really within you. Like, man, this is good. Like I'm good. I feel good about this. There's this like, I feel bad about that because you compare that to, well, I feel good not doing anything. I feel good like
taking a rest.
taking a rest day. And it's like, well, then
But that's where too it ties into like the identity and what's it saying about me, because I'm
that's
taking
where
a day off. Am I lazy? Like, so
Well, yeah.
that's where learning about yourself, to your point.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds so simple, like, but yeah, learning like where those pitfalls are and who you really are, and what is the point of this, and kind of being familiar with asking those questions, because the more you ask them, I mean, and that's something I said last night, like I'm learning a lot about myself, and it's, of course the answers are always changing, but it's not as, the recall is much quicker. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, that's right. Okay, this is something to be aware of, because that is how I am, and it's okay to accept it just having awareness of it, just
Yeah.
knowing where your tendencies are.
Yeah. And I think the part, I guess, about like, not feeling bad about feeling good about yourself is a huge one to just sit with and unpack and visit that. And, again, the energy behind the action also is where, and I think it's like, okay, well then again, how do I know it's my best? It's like, well, how were you? How were you being?
Right.
And with the emotional drivers with things like, yeah, I want to feel productive. It's not about like accomplishing tasks, but I want to feel like I'm contributing. I want to feel worthy. I want to feel whatever. Okay. That's going to provide a much different action. But when we look at, like being okay with feeling good, there's also that relinquishing what the things are saying about you. So for example, and there's one of the weeks in the practice 1.0 where it's about letting go. And that is for most people a very, very powerful one. And for some get very emotional. And for those who go there, like go there. One of the things I think in that, and this is sort of from Buddhism as well, is about the non-attachment. And so I'll take today for an example. So whatever we did in the morning, talked. I'm in this online, I'm taking this online course. We do the podcast. I'm going to upload it. I would like to work out, but if I don't work out today, but I felt good today, like I feel good, like body feels good, a little sore, whatever, mentally, emotionally. Okay. We had some good conversations. You're resting. So like, if it was like a good day, but I didn't work out,
It's like is it a blemish?
is it a blemish? Is it a pebble in the shoe?
Right.
Is
And
it
in
a
the
thorn in the
rational
side?
thing, it's like, yes, you did less than.
Right.
But it's like, that's all the rules.
Yeah, but I felt exactly.
Yeah.
But if it's like,
just
yeah, but I
another
felt
entire
really
podcast.
good doing this.
Yeah.
Like I feel good today.
Right.
And
Let
it's like,
yourself
can
feel
you
that.
fucking accept that
Yeah.
and not be attached to, yeah, but I
Well,
worked
I feel
out.
good only if right. I'm only allowed to feel good. I feel good, but I'm only allowed to really feel good if I checked all my boxes. And that's not really about feeling anything. That's just about seeing the boxes checked.
Right.
You could check them.
And I think that it's like, and this is where people, I think, get tripped up. Anybody that's sort of read or studied or is interested in the Buddhist teachings, where they speak about this with love, to be non-attached to the love of your life. You'd be like, well, hold on a second. It's like, that's not for who I'm in love with or my wife or my husband or whatever, my kids. And it's like, yeah, but it is. It's not conditional. And so to have that, it's actually a higher form of that very thing, because then you step into like really wanting it and understanding it. And that's like it gets a little bit more deep.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably a whole other thing, non-attachment. And, yeah. So
yeah,
not to stray too
the
far.
essence of it is to say,
Except feeling good,
but also understand that, like, if I were to then to go, let's just say, do a quick workout, and I think I probably will, but if I didn't, that doesn't necessarily say one thing or the other.
Sure.
Because how I was and how I wanted to experience the day is, over the grand scheme of things, going to be more important. And I'm not somebody who is lazy and a shitbag and weak and doesn't work out. It's not like all of a sudden I'm going to be like, I didn't work out today and I didn't have any quote unquote good reason not to, but I felt really good today. It's not going to be like, I'm never going to touch a weight again. It's like, no, it's not that. So just let go of that part of it where.
Right. You've just made that up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's a bit of, I don't know if that made sense.
It did, but I think that's a whole other topic in itself. So, but yeah, but I think, what?
Nothing. I was just breathing.
Yeah. So you're going to work out and I'm just going to be a lazy shitbag.
The number one
I think I'm
reason,
gonna make bread and reorganize the basement
no, you can't. I have to not work out. The reason I'm not working
so you
out,
can monitor me. No,
so I can
I
monitor
do. I would like to just feed my sourdough so that tomorrow I can do a million things and make my bread. No, but that's fine. Like I'm being relaxed. I'm probably going to watch some television.
oh my God, what are you
I'm gonna
watch?
watch that home show. It's
No,
educational.
I heard a new series, The McMillions. I heard that was really good. You don't know what it's about.
I do know what it's about.
What is
it's
it
about
about?
McDonald's and the whole lottery thing.
Yeah, but it's the story of it.
Yes, You hate when I'm right. You
No,
want it
I
to
just
be,
don't think you know what it's about.
I do know what it's about. It's the story of how that lottery thing, kind of, it was like a scam. Nobody ever won the McMillion lottery thing.
No, wrong.
All right, whatever. I don't
Apparently there was
I'm going to
this-
watch the home show, and it's really fascinating, and it's a learning show. Right, Riley? So yeah, I think that was good. It's about
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fine. All right.
So I think it's
Anything
good to
else?
have people reframe their best and how
Yeah,
you're
and
being.
explore it. I think
Yeah.
that's the number one thing, and again, that's where the power of curiosity is huge, and only you can answer that, and be like, that's a rabbit hole, so tumble on down it. There's an online seminar coming.
Yes.
I'm excited about it.
Wow. You can really tell. Listeners, can't you hear the excitement in Bill's voice?
I'm excited about it.
Ah,
I think
there
it's
you
going to
go.
be really good.
I'm excited too.
It's going to be different from the in-person seminar also.
Yeah.
Which I
And
think,
not focused on fitness so much. Physical fitness.
no, but the in-person seminar wasn't either.
No, but for people listening who don't know that the in-person seminar wasn't really about.
Or I had one. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be cool. I
So-
think yeah, it'll be
Yeah.
it'll be really, really cool. So hopefully in a week or two,
Couple weeks.
couple
Hello,
weeks,
Charlie.
get that out there. Charlie's up in the hatch. Okay. The
All
dogs
right.
are being unruly now. All right, we'll see you guys next week.
Just when you made your debut, mister. You, mister. You, mister. You, mister. You,